smaller. Everything else is secondary. Everything else is secondary, growing smaller.
4 years ago, I was at a District 60 Spring Conference, and I attended a workshop entitled Communication Success for Engaging Your Audience. Communication success. The facilitator promised that we would learn the key to communication by understanding the other person's perspective. Key to communication success is understanding the other person's perspective. Madam Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, and most understanding guests and judges. At the end of the workshop, the facilitator asked, has anybody got a question? And one sheepish hand rose. And the person asked, you know, I don't have trouble understanding other people. My challenge and issue is people understanding me. Where I work, and the group I work with, people start to speak loud, are aggressive, and my voice becomes small. My opinions are taken by other people, and no one hears my voice. The facilitator, his response was not an answer or an explanation, but it was a question. Has anybody else faced a similar situation and knows what to do? We looked around the room and someone had his arm up and a hand was waving. And the facilitator saw that and said, yes, go ahead. Tell us about your experience and what would you do in this situation? It was only then that I realized that that arm and the hand waving was attached to my body. I started to speak very slowly. I think I know what you feel. As a sales representative, I have to face unhappy customers. And I'm never sure where they're going to go in the meeting. I think I have a solution that you could use. I stopped for a moment to take a breath, to try to find some fluid in my mouth to wet my tongue. The blood was pounding in my head. And I went on to explain the purpose of an agenda. That I found that by creating an agenda, I could figure out what was the purpose of the meeting. What were the key topics? And with that proposed agenda, I could send it to the other company, to the contact that I had, and get feedback as to if I was on track, and even possibly get an answer for what to expect. And when we were in that meeting, those loud voices, those aggressive people who wanted to always take control of the meeting, I could use the agenda as a tool to bring everybody on track. Everything else was secondary. I looked over and I could see that the participant was resonating with this answer. He was nodding her head. And we all looked up at the facilitator. He said, yes. It's the responsibility of the speaker for the communication. It's not up to the receiver to try to understand what the message is. The agenda would help in organizing a structure and organization in order to keep everybody on track and get to your purpose. I looked at the participant, she was smiling. The facilitator was nodding. If you looked at me, you could see my head start to swell a little. Years later, as I started to research the relationship between the head, the heart, and the gut, I discovered that neuroscience is saying that the 10 billion neurons that are in our gut and the 400, 500 million neurons that are part of our heart are exactly the same in structure, in chemistry, and function as the 100 billion neurons in our head. And so these neuroscientists are saying that our body is composed of 3 brains, 3 independent brains that have the ability to think logically. Psychologists are saying that if you can align the 3 brains, you are gaining a powerful advantage that allows you to empower and achieve outcomes you cannot achieve alone. For example, you will find you could reduce stress and your health becomes better. If these 3 brains align, you will discover that you can make quicker and better decisions. And of course, for us Toastmasters, when we align these 3 brains, we'll create more powerful communication, more effective, and reach our audiences with our head and our heart. I realized that my explanation of the agenda in that workshop resonated with the participant because I could reach her head, her heart, and her gut. And what I also learned from that meeting was the facilitator asked her 3 questions. The first was, does it make sense to have an agenda? And she said yes. And his second question was, does it make sense for your heart to prepare an agenda? She smiled and she said, yes, it seems to be free and a weight is coming off my shoulders. And I have confidence that I can do this. And his third question was, what does your gut tell you when you prepare an agenda? She says, I know I can do it. I already do it in Toastmasters. I only need to transfer this to my group meeting. All 3, the head, the gut, and the heart, were resonating. I'll leave you with these last words from Steve Jobs. Have courage to follow your heart and intuition. They already know what it is that you will truly become, and everything else is secondary.